Well, it's official. In a stunning move, President Donald Trump has announced that starting March 4th, he will impose a 25% tariff on Canadian and Mexican goods. But why? And what does this mean for American consumers, businesses, and the overall global economy? If you think tariffs only impact foreign companies, think again. You're about to feel it at the gas pump, the grocery store, and even in your next car purchase. But before diving into Trump's policies, let's define tariffs. A tariff is essentially a tax imposed by a government on imported goods. The goal is usually to make foreign products more expensive, encouraging consumers to buy domestically produced alternatives. However, tariffs can also lead to higher prices for everyday goods, supply chain disruptions, and even trade conflicts with other nations. Trump argues that tariffs are necessary to fix the massive trade imbalance that the US has, because the US imports a lot of goods and services. The US has a trade deficit with China and Canada, meaning that it imports more than it exports. By imposing tariffs, Trump hopes to make foreign goods more expensive, encouraging Americans to buy from domestic producers instead. But there's also some additional considerations. First, will American consumers switch? Even with higher prices on imports, consumers may still prefer foreign products due to quality, brand loyalty, or lack of domestic alternatives. And even with the supply chain, many US businesses rely on raw materials from Canada and Mexico, meaning that tariffs could disrupt production and lead to product shortages. And also, let's do a deep dive into a past failure. Similar tariff policies in history have often led to economic downturns rather than prosperity. Let's look at an evidence-based approach to whether tariffs work or not. History has shown that tariffs often do more harm than good, in that the costs outweigh the benefits. One of the most infamous examples is the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930, which raised tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods in an effort to protect American farmers and businesses during the Great Depression. I think that's the whole idea of tariffs, is that you want to protect domestic production, encourage domestic purchases, and reduce over-reliance on foreign products and services. As you can see, the move backfired spectacularly. It led to retaliation from other countries, higher consumer prices, and the collapse of global trade. In response to US tariffs, Canada, Europe, and other nations imposed their own tariffs on American goods, which reduced exports and even exacerbated the economic downturn and led to a depression. There were also higher consumer prices. Just like today, tariffs made everyday goods more expensive for Americans, further squeezing households already struggling with financial hardship and high rent and high mortgage costs. And also, world trade fell, which actually made the depression worse than rather alleviating it. So basically, the idea here is that tariffs seem like a quick fix to an economic problem, but they often lead to unintended consequences that the government just simply doesn't think about. And this hurts businesses, consumers, and economic growth. Let's try to understand why Trump likes tariffs, and let's dive into some of the pros of tariffs. One of Trump's core promises has always been to make America great again, was to bring back jobs and to support domestic manufacturing and production. One of the reasons he was elected in 2016 was because due to free trade agreements, much production was actually exported to other countries and domestic jobs and manufacturing fell. If you look at, for example, auto manufacturing in Michigan, some of those Rust Belt states, lots of manufacturing and even oil production fell. By making foreign goods more expensive, he believes American businesses will be forced to manufacture domestically, creating more jobs. Industries like steel and aluminum, where Canada is a huge major supplier, stand to gain, at least in theory. But there's also going to be labor shortages as well. Even if businesses want to bring production back, can they find enough skilled workers to fill positions? How long would it take to build steel plants and other similar giant facilities? Companies may even opt for automation instead of rehiring workers, which means that they reduce the number of jobs created. Plus, there's also higher costs for manufacturers. Producing in the US often comes with higher wages and operational costs, which could still lead to price increases for consumers. Most economists will agree that voluntary trade and exchange is beneficial. When you create tariffs and you create barriers to trade, this can lead to economic inefficiency and higher prices for consumers. There's also dangers in using tariffs as a negotiation tactic. Trump is no stranger to using tariffs as a bargaining chip. He previously imposed tariffs on Canadian goods to pressure Canada into renegotiating NAFTA, which led to the USMCA deal. Now, he's back at it again. And there's also a risk of retaliation. Canada and Mexico stand to impose their own tariffs, which actually kind of negate any potential gains. Repeated tariff threats may make other nations hesitant to engage in trade agreements and with the US. So this leads to basically a whole geopolitical crisis, and businesses may delay expansions or investments due to unpredictable trade policies and an unstable market. As you can see today, many of the stocks dropped due to uncertainties over the tariffs. Here's where things get personal. If these tariffs go through, and they are going to, the average cost of a new car in the US could rise by about $3,000. Grocery prices expect an increase. Steel and aluminum are used in most things from buildings, beer cans, meaning that nearly every industry will see price hikes. And don't forget energy costs. Canada is a major oil supplier to the US, and tariffs could send gas prices soaring. Also, small businesses could be hit the hardest. Many small retailers rely on affordable imports. Tariffs could force them to raise prices or even shut down altogether. There's also going to be a significant impact on the housing market. Construction materials will become more expensive, driving up home prices and rent. And there's also hidden inflation too, because businesses may mask price hikes by reducing package sizes or even lowering product quality. Canada isn't taking this lightly. Officials have already vowed swift retaliation, which could spell trouble for US exporters. Canada and Mexico buy billions of dollars worth of American goods each year. If they impose counter tariffs, American farmers, manufacturers, and retailers could all take a hit. Look at the Canadian consumers. Nowadays, more Canadian consumers are buying Canadian-produced goods, buying from Canadian-owned businesses rather than from America. And also look at travel to the US. Look at companies like Air Canada, which is already reducing the amount of flights to US because Canadians are straight up canceling travel to the US. So the idea of tariffs was to support American production and manufacturing, but there's also significant negative consequences as well. Canadian and Mexican counter tariffs could target US agricultural exports, which hurt American farmers. And the stock market reacted quite significantly. Investors may pull back from industries reliant on international trade, which leads to market volatility. So what's next? The US economy is already battling inflation. Higher tariffs mean higher costs for businesses, which gets passed down to consumers. More expensive goods means Americans spend more for the same products, further fueling inflation. I mean, look at the egg prices right now in the US. If the groceries are going to go up, this is going to significantly affect American consumers, especially those struggling to get by. The Fed may also be forced to keep interest rates high for longer, which slows economic growth. If prices rise while economic growth slows, the US could face stagflation, a toxic mix of stagnation in the economy and high inflation. And higher costs may make consumers spend less, weakening the economy. With March 4th approaching very fast, all eyes are on Canada, Mexico, and the global markets. Will they retaliate? Will American consumers push back against rising prices? And will Trump's strategy actually achieve its goals, or will it backfire? The idea of tying tariffs in retaliation to fentanyl crossing the border is definitely an idea, but it's going to result in significant costs for consumers. And I think that over the short term and the long term, the costs outweigh the benefits. What do you think? Are the tariffs the right move for America, or are they a ticking time bomb for the economy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates on this developing story. Thank you for watching this video from Biz1, and see you in the next one.